history of the Little John crankbait. And when I say the history, it involves Dean Rojas, it involves Lure Jensen, it involves Craig Powers, it involves old handmade crankbaits. So when I talk about the history of the Little John, it's much more than just putting a little sketch on a piece of paper and then having a factory make you prototypes until the bait gets right and all that kind of stuff. And we'll go over that as well. But it involves all kind of different people, and I just think it's kind of a fun, interesting story that I wanted to share, because a number of years ago when I started out fishing, grew up here in Virginia and fished a lot in Virginia and North Carolina. There's not a lot of lakes around here that have a lot of grass. So we were fishing a lot of hardcover, you know, Bugs Island and Lake Gaston and the James River and even the Potomac. The Potomac had grass, didn't have grass, had grass, didn't have grass. But the James River very rarely had grass. Now it's got some grass down on the Chickahominy side. But so a lot of those places that I grew up fishing, I'm fishing a lot of hardcover. I'm fishing a lot of, I mean, it's tailor-made for a shallow running crankbait. And believe you me, if I could get my hands on a shallow running crankbait, I'm talking everything from old balsa bees, I'm talking Charlie O'Carinos, like the old stuff, Big O's, all those old crankbaits, and you know, even the newer Bagley DKB1, and they've changed like 5 times in the last 30 years for whatever reason, but they keep, I kept throwing various crankbaits, everything I get my hands on, handmade stuff, you know, including stuff from Craig Powers, who I learned a lot from, rooming with him some on the FLW tour back in the day. But the Little John basically came from a small wooden crankbait, which is this right here, is a Ronnie B baby pig. So check that bad boy out right there. I retired this one. It has been beaten to a pulp. It has been chewed to a pulp. I won quite a bit of money on this one particular crankbait right here. Just won an absolute ton of money, and it's a wooden bait. It's a little bit smaller than, you know, say the original Little John, a little bit smaller because I wanted a bait that casted better. This thing does not cast all that great. It casts okay. But the one unique thing about this little flat side was the computer chip bill. That was a unique thing. A lot of handmaids have those. But the one other unique thing is that the bait slowly rose. It didn't just pop up like a cork, like a square bill, like a balsa V2, and that was fairly unique. There are a number of flat sides that kind of have that characteristic. So I wanted a better casting version of this bait, and I wanted it for a few years. Well, back in the day, I was sponsored by Lure Jensen. Lure Jensen at the time was a family-owned company. Had some really good people there. Buzz Ramsey, I believe, was the guy. He's, you know, a legend in the Northwest as far as cold water species, salmon, and that kind of stuff. Super nice guy. At the time, he was in charge of the pro staff. He hired a number of guys, including Dean Rojas and a few others. Well, Dean went off with this company called SPRO and made this frog that he wanted to make, called a bronze eye frog. I think everybody watching this video should be well aware of what a bronze eye frog is at this point in time. A bronze eye frog is a staple in everybody's tackle box. There's the popping frogs now, and they've got the bigger ones and the bigger popping frogs and all that kind of stuff. So Dean and I were on the same pro staff for a couple years with Lure Jensen, and we talked a lot about crankbaits. I got to know Dean fairly well during that time period, and he got to know me. And he would ask me a lot of questions. I would ask him stuff about frog fishing and things like that. You know, we just talk a lot of fishing. And he was very intrigued with some of the things that I said about crankbait fishing. And, you know, and then we had one tournament on Beaver Lake. It was an FLW tour. And we talked after practice, and I told him I'd caught him pretty good on this crankbait, that crankbait, and a couple different ones. Now, one is a wiggle wart, of course, and Ozarks. But the tournament came along, and the weather changed. So when the weather changed, I stopped throwing crankbaits and I picked up, soft plastics and just started, finessing around and caught decent limit because I knew the types of banks and the types of areas that the bass were in. And Dean caught one bass. He came to me and he said, "Oh my God, you had 10 pounds. Good job, dude. I can't believe you caught him on a crankbait." I said, "Oh no, I didn't." He said, I told him, I said, "Yeah, I caught one first thing in the morning, about a 2-pounder on it. And then the sun started to come up and they wouldn't bite it. So I switched to, drop shot and Carolina rig and stuff and ended up catching the rest of my fish." And he was like, "Oh my gosh, man, you were just blasting them." Wow. It's like, well, the weather changed, just one of those things that you learn. I think things like that made an impact on him. So when he was with SPRO, a guy named Tim Norman was the national pro staff or a national sales manager. He's one of the top guys there at SPRO at the time. He asked Dean, "Who do I need to get over here at SPRO to help design a crankbait? We want to do a new crankbait, want to design a crankbait." And so lo and behold, Dean suggested me. And I talked with Tim. We met at ICAST one year. I was extremely humbled because at the time I had accomplished very little, and I've accomplished a little bit more since then. But I broke out my box and I showed him this crankbait right here. I said, we need to make a better plastic version of this. And he said, "All right, do you want," and he grabbed for it and he said, "All right, do you want me to just copy this?" I said, No, we're not copying that. No. We have to change the bill angle. I want it to fish a little bit different, but this is the basic framework that we want for it. And so I drew it out. I drew out the bill angle, drew all this kind of stuff. And so when I got the very first one, this is what I ended up getting. This is solid. It's a solid piece of plastic. There's no rattles. There's no nothing in it. I don't know exactly what they made this thing out of, but it's pretty cool. It is pretty cool. I changed the rear hook hanger, made it sideways to help increase the distance between the two. But they turned this hook hanger sideways as well, which I did not really want. So we ended up changing that. But this was the very first prototype that I got from them. Now all this is I drew it out on paper. This was the signature SPRO eye at the time, still is, that Dean kind of put out there with the frog. So that was kind of the signature that we needed to stick with SPRO. And so at first I got some different running, and the other big key is I wanted this flat side to cast very well. So what we did is, you can see it in here, is we have a weight transfer system in it. So when the bait is running, it runs right there. And then when you go to cast, you tip it over and that ball runs to the back. So it puts more weight to the rear and it makes it cast just like a bullet. Now this thing weighs, it's a little bit bigger than the original baby pig. So it's going to have a little more weight because we kept the weight. It's still got a belly weight right up there in the throat. It's got a belly weight up there, and then it's got this weight here. So it has that slow floating action, which is exactly what I wanted. There are definitely times when that slow floating action helps you get more bites. It also helps the bait get a little bit deeper, which can also catch more fish at times. But that was it right there. This is one of the first running prototypes that I got from SPRO, and it had that. And this is a metal ball. It's got a loud rattle in it, and I didn't want that. So we ended up making this ball out of soft tungsten. They had a powder, and they mixed it with some rubber, so it was still very dense. And that soft tungsten ball was what was able to help that bait cast further. It still does. This is the bait today. This is the Little John in the package, one of the original colors, Cellmate, which Tim Norman, he named that color. I wanted to call it Soul Glow after coming to America. Just let your soul glow. Okay, I won't sing anymore. You're welcome. But yeah, I wanted to call it Soul Glow, but he wanted to call it Cellmate because he was, I think, a parole officer or something for a while. And so he just thought that was so pretty, it looked like a cellmate. So whatever. It's a catchy name, and it definitely has been one of my go-tos for a number of years. But yeah, this is we have pretty much haven't changed the packaging in 14, 15 years, something like that. It's been quite a long time since that first time we sat down and started drawing this thing out at ICAST. And then I think it's kind of funny now because I didn't want the rattle in this bait. I did not want it to rattle. I wanted it to be quiet. I wanted it to be silent so it would mimic a wooden bait a lot more. And now we ended up coming out with rattling versions. The Type R, we've come out with that in the just last year, and that thing has been wildly successful, wildly popular. That Type R, the rattling model, and if you're not aware, the SPRO Little John lineup has expanded. The very next year we did the MD, and then we did the DD, the deep diver, the 70 millimeters long. I've caught thousands of fish on that, and then we did the baby DD, and we've done a bunch of other baits, the Spin John, the Fat John, baby Fat John, so on and so forth. And then we're still coming along. We did the micro DD, Little John micro DD last year, and we're working on another one. We're working on the Little John micro, the regular. So it'll be basically a smaller version of this, but I'm changing the lip angle so that the bait has a different action. When the body's going to get a little bit smaller, it's going to have a different type of vibration in order to run correctly, and I feel like to get bit like we want it to. But that's kind of the short version of the story of the Little John. And early on, before I would say I ran into Dean Rojas there and kind of enlightened him, a lot of the stuff I learned before that, was stuff I picked up on my own. And at the time, early in my career, I was rooming with Kobe Carden from Alabama. He's a shallow crankbait guy. We bounced heads against each other a lot and kind of learned stuff from each other. Russ Lane and Russ is a cranker at heart. He's a very good crankbait fisherman, deep and shallow. And Russ and I roomed together a couple years after Kobe and I. We learned a lot from each other. Craig Powers, during that time, I roomed with him some. He's an East Tennessee guru guy on crankbaits. He actually makes a bunch of shallow crankbaits. He's got his own CP brand of crankbaits. He's got 3 different models. They're wooden baits. He has studied under the guy that made this. He's no longer, he's passed away, so you can't get this actual one, but I hear that you can get those ones exactly like he used to make, but I don't have any of those. But I've got SPRO, man. We've got it even better. We can make the plastic version that lasts forever and cast like a rocket. So that's kind of the history of the Little John crankbait and how it came to fruition, how it came to be. And each of the baits I do for SPRO, I do drawings, sketches on paper with dimensions and everything, and then we work back and forth through the prototypes. I've talked about that in the past, but I don't know that I've actually addressed the history of the Little John. So if you have any more questions on the Little John, the history of the Little John, anything like that, just be sure to let me know. And if you want to see any new colors, we keep coming out with new colors every year, and just try to bring everything to the consumer that they would want. And a lot of times that lines up with what I want in my tackle box, is what y'all probably want in your tackle box too. But I miss some things. We all miss some things. SPRO misses some things from time to time. So please drop it down there in the comments below. Let me know what you want to see. This is not a production color. It looks okay, but I just wanted to show you because you could see that ball going back and forth in there. But yeah, any other colors, new colors, I want to see about it. Thanks for watching.